Welcome to LSC. It's Sports Time. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have a good friend of mine, Bobby Mann, with us. Bobby Mann was a help coach with me over at Sims, went to Kickotan and done a lot of things. But welcome. I'm glad to have you here.
Good to be here, Bob. Good to be here.
Well, let's go back a little bit in time because you've been in Hampton your whole life. You played ball, rec league ball. Talk a little bit about that and where you played and maybe some of the coaches you had, if you can remember some of those. I know it's going back in time.
It's going back a few years, but I started my organized football at the King Street Community Center.
Okay.
That was at the corner of King Street and Pembroke Avenue, and that is the King Street Cougars. I always remember that. And I was a 130-pound fullback, and the league was 140 pounds. So I had a good year. I had some good years there. But that's where we started. I started playing organized football.
Okay, and were you always a running back?
Always a running back, yes.
Okay, is that because you had good speed, or?
Well, I kind of like carrying the ball. I kind of thought I could do that. I didn't want to block too much or tackle too much, so I could run the ball, and that's what I've always played.
Okay, and then you went to Phoenix High.
Went to Phoenix High School. Phoenix, I graduated in 1957. I was there, I played football there, played halfback there. That was doing the old four-back sets, quarterback, two halfbacks, fullback. So I played right halfback.
Oh, we got a picture right here to show some of that when you were at Phoenix.
Yes.
And what were some, you had some good coaches over there, and the Lovett brothers, if I remember.
Yeah. Bill Lovett was my head coach. And that picture shows him the year we started with Carver. We had some success against Carver. Carver was a young school, but later on it became tough, and there's a couple of guys that you'll remember, Guthrie and Fruit Trail, and somebody named Leroy Keys.
Yeah, that kind of rings a bell.
Yeah. But we started with Carver, and this is a picture coming off the field, and they're the Lovett brothers. Wilbur, Bill was at Phoenix, and his brother Walter was at Carver. Coach Lovett, my coach at Phoenix, went on to be principal one time of Hampton High and I think Bethel.
Right. Yes.
And Walter went on to become coach at Virginia State in Petersburg. Then he came back to Hampton University and coached at Hampton University for a few years. They're both retired now.
Well, see, so you went through 4 years, and what were some of your teammates? Can you remember some of your teammates?
Oh, yes, I can tell you some of my teammates. I guess one of the best guys that I played with, and he'll tell you that, is Joseph King, Putty Red.
And he'll tell you how good he was.
He was very good. Putty was very good. For a year or two, he didn't come off the field. Every play Putty played, and he's a wild man. I mean, we didn't have face masks, so he was wild and funny looking, and he was tough. And I remember one game, especially, Bob, Putty came in the huddle. I always tell this story. And he looked at me and started saying, "You back, start running the ball right." And he looked at me and smacked me upside the head, and I was scared of Putty than I was of the other team. I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. King. Yes, sir." But he was a tremendous athlete. He went on to play at Norfolk State. One of the guys I remember before me was Clifton Jackson, the great C. Jack from Phoebus. He went down to North Carolina Central and later played in Canada. He was a tremendous halfback. He's about 5'9", 5'10", maybe 11, 175 pounds. Very good ball player. Right. And then we had one named Alvin Perriel. We just recognized Alvin Perriel as one of the distinguished Phoenix alumni.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Alvin Perriel was a big guy. I didn't realize how big he was, about 6'1", 230. That's back in the 50s.
Yeah, so you know, when you're that big, you didn't do anything but block on the line.
Absolutely.
And nobody knew who you were.
Alvin had all A's. He only made A's at Phoenix, and then he went to Yale. Did pretty good at Yale.
Wow.
Made all league at Yale, and he worked in the controller's office in New York City. And another guy that you remember is Emory Shug Turner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Shug was a good friend of mine. He lived right down the street from me, and Shug was a tremendous ball player. He's a big guy, 6'2", maybe, and maybe 220, 225. He made All-State, then later went on to Purdue and played football at Purdue. And those are some of the guys that I really remember playing around the time that I played.
Okay, but now when you graduate, you didn't go on to college.
No, I did not.
That's, and normally here you were, you played football, and and I know you had some offers to play, but you decided Uncle Sam offered a better deal, or what?
I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And when I never thought about college. I thought about maybe I could play college football. one of my experiences that I had that I really cherish, when I was at Phoenix, we scrimmaged Hampton Institute twice.
Right.
In 1 year.
In 1 year?
In 1 year. We scrimmaged them twice. And I think Philip Smith, you know Philip, their coach, he was at Huntington. He scrimmaged them. You could do it back in those days. So when we scrimmaged them, the first time we scrimmaged them, we went over there and we had a pretty good scrimmage against them because they had not been in camp but a few days.
Right.
We went back a week later and we didn't do so very good. But I had the idea that I could play college football, but I just never thought about college. So when I got out, I made an application at 3 or 4 schools, and I was accepted, and I was accepted at Hampton. So I thought I'd go in the Army and get a little bigger, a little stronger, and maybe a little wiser.
Well, and you did, but you went in and you became a tank man.
Yep.
Armor.
Yeah, I went into tanks. I don't know. You know, you're 17 years old, you go into service, they tell you anything, and you might. Tanks seemed to be what I wanted to try to do.
Right.
And so I did tanks the first 3 years and got out, and during the summer of '60, wasn't quite sure where I was going, so I went back in, and I went down to the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg.
Yeah, we got the thing here for the 82nd Airborne, and it blows my mind, anybody that wants to jump out of a airplane that's still running. That's still flying. But, you know, that takes a certain amount of courage to thinking, okay, this parachute is going to open.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's relatively safe the way you do it in the Army. I've never jumped in wartime, so I don't know about wartime. I think that would not be so good. But peacetime, I only saw one malfunction the whole time I was jumping. I had 30-something jumps. So.
Wow, that's something. Yeah. But then you leave that, then you come back, and now you say, okay, I can go to Hampton Institute.
Yeah. I just reapplied. They had my old application, and so I just started Hampton. As I was telling you, I got out in August of '63. I got out one day and started football practice the next day at Hampton. Wow. So played 4 years at Hampton. Played some. It wasn't great, but I got in some games, and I let it. And
we got some pictures around here.
One of them over there at the homecoming. I had a chance to play with 3 or 4 guys that played pro football.
That's a good experience.
Edward Tomlin. His father is the coach of Pittsburgh.
Right.
He was a tremendous football player out of Ocala, Florida. The only time I ever heard of Ocala, Florida, Edward Tomlin. Big, about 6'2", 6'3", 230, and one of the fastest guys on the team. And then we had Anthony Tex Andrews out of Texas, and he got drafted by somebody. Wally Henry was out from Houston. He got drafted by the Cowboys. And so we had, and it was somebody else that on the same backfield in those 4 years that got drafted by the pros.
So you had a good experience over there, too.
I certainly did.
And then graduated and said, I'm going to try coaching.
Yes, yes.
And then you went over and went to Sims and ran into some screwball over there.
And somebody named Bob Hintz, Robert Hot Dog Hintz.
Oh, man, you didn't have to come up with that.
We always think of that story, Robert Hot Dog Hintz. And Bob had been at Buckrow, and I think the story goes that his wife told him when he won a game, he gets steaks. And when he lost the game, he got hot dogs. So we named him Hot Dog Hintz. Yeah. That kind of stuck with him.
Yeah, but you know, and you were teaching and coaching,
yes.
and in my wisdom,
yes,
that here you are a running back, and I have you coaching the line.
Had me coaching the line. I don't know. I had some good guys to coach. Gene Jordan and Steve Snademan and some of those, Kenny Charity. So we had some pretty good guys to coach. That's the first and only time I've ever tried to coach line anywhere. So that was a learning experience for both of us. But at that level, Bob, as you know, kids need the fundamentals.
Yep.
They get the fundamentals, and I could give them some fundamentals, I believe, and so that was the main thing that we did over there.
Yeah,
but that was
we had some pretty good success over there, too.
That was great, junior high school football.
Right.
I remember the first time we went to Darling Stadium with the kids. To get a chance to play at Darling Stadium. Yeah,
this was a big thing for these kids.
A big thing for those kids.
Yeah, but we had Skip Grimm. I remember
Skippy Grimm.
Was on
he went on to Kickertan, and then he went to the Army and played some in one of the leagues at West Point and did a great job.
Right.
And he was a very enthusiastic guy. He went to Kickertan the same year I did, so I coached him directly for 4 years.
Right, because you went to Kickertan in '69, and I didn't go to Bethel until '70, so I was there one more year and didn't have you on my line coach. Probably didn't do as well, but anyway. So talk about that experience at Kickertan, because now you're working with the kids that a little better fundamentally.
A little bigger.
Right.
A little stronger. Had a great time at Kickertan. My old friend
Revis Conrad,
Ben Rich, Benjamin Rich, still my friend
Right.
after all these years, and we do some work together in the rescue mission. But when I went over to Kickertan, Ben found out that I didn't know much football, so he started working with me and went to camps and clinics. And Ben is a preparer.
Yeah.
He can break down film. He watched a lot of film. And we went to Carolina, we went to Duke, we went to Tech, we went to Virginia, we went to Tennessee. We went to all these places. William Murray several times, watching football, talking to football people. And Ben is a football person. So I think I kind of got it about midway of the second year. About midway of the second year.
Well, see, but that was his life.
Yeah.
See, that was his life, and you were just getting into it, and he had been around a little while. And, you know, I've always thought highly of Ben Rich, but you had some nice coaches on there, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Revis Conrad, bless his soul.
Revis. You know his name is Madison Revis Conrad, but nobody calls him Madison. He passed away a couple of years ago, and he was elected posthumously in the Hall of Fame at Chowan University.
Okay.
And so it's Ben Rich. So I got two of my coaches' buddies there that were inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Wow, that's great.
And then we had Killer Wright, the line coach, a wild man out of the western part of Virginia. He was just one of those guys who got fired up and he was crazy. And Steve Hockman, who went on to be the principal at Warwick High School.
Right. Well, then you left coaching and went into insurance. You worked with Aetna for a while before you went to Allstate. And got to be one of our sponsors, and you still get to be. They call you and Robert Hudson.
Jim Hudson. It's old Carver High School guy.
Right.
In fact, Jim finished 2 years Carver 2 years after I finished Phoenix, so he knows some of the same people I know. And Jim was in the United States Air Force. He retired from the Air Force, and then he went into the insurance business, and we had an opportunity to work together. He's a true humanitarian. He's currently the assistant pastor of Emmanuel Baptist Church in North Newport News, one of the old Carver guys. So he's still out there near Carver High School, doing a great job.
Well, listen, you've been around athletes your whole life and been involved in athletics your whole life, off and on. If you were to sit down, and I'm going to kind of wrap it up with this, but if you could sit down with a student athlete and his parents, what would be your message? Get something. Prepare yourself. You have to get something sooner or later. The best thing to do is stay in school as long as you can. Right. If something happens and you can't stay in school, or after school, if you don't want to go academically, get a skill. But you must get some training beyond high school. Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming in. We want to thank you for tuning in to LFC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest, Bobby Mann. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Until next time.